Hey guys, this is Rurouni K95 here. Once again, it's time for a manga review video. First off, I thought I was going to do Inuyasha Volume 10 manga review, but that'll be a subject for another time for my next manga review. But this video, I wanted to do something a lot more different, which is something that I haven't thought of doing one before, which I probably should have done in a while. When it comes to doing a manga review, that's the thing, particularly, just to consider how I've been reading a lot of manga as well, and picking some that I can reread and do a review of this manga. Like I'm gonna do, there's only 3 volumes, I'm gonna do it like all in one for this particular review, as opposed to do this. For today's manga review is Devilman vs. Hades, a Devilman Great Mazinger crossover manga that I have right here. I have read the manga once, twice, and then I read it for the 3rd time basically as well. Okay, so for the story in Devilman vs. Hades is basically of how the story where it's left off takes place after the original Devilman manga was finished, particularly. Especially on the events, especially when Akira Fudo, who has basically always becomes Devilman, particularly when he knew particularly that his girlfriend Miki Makimura was dead, particularly. So he basically goes back into hell, wants to revive his girlfriend Miki, particularly of how. Especially if he wants to fight the battle between him and Hades, particularly, of how he would have learned over the fact, particularly, especially for his revenge, of how he wants his girlfriend's soul back to her, like, he wanted to, like, revive her, particularly, like, wanting to revive his girlfriend back from the dead, particularly, yeah, because he wanted revenge, particularly, no matter how much he wants to battle Lord Hades in this particularly, especially in this hellish carnage of how this is going on in the Devilman versus Hades story, particularly, as it stands by of how it goes. And on top of this has gotten to a point, though, particularly of how, if he would have realized of how Akira Fudo is basically Devilman himself, particularly, of how Hades realized, though, that how he knew that Devilman has killed Hades' loving wife, particularly, which is, I think this goes by the name, especially of how he wants to revive Miki's soul back to life, particularly, since her death has all would have got to him accordingly to the fact when he was sent to the other world, particularly of how we see how this has got to this occasionally. Then we see Dr. Hell, who is the character in Great Mazinger, Mazinger Z, saying wanted to have the battle against Great Mazinger, what Hades would have basically originally wanted to fight Devilman wanted to fight Hades, but it was put on hold, though, is that they wanted to have the battle against Great Mazinger as well, as considered to the fact when Akira Fudo is in another world, particularly this Karasu Tengu character, who is operated by Professor Kabuto, who is basically tracking down Hades of who it's up to in hell in the location, particularly, as would have gotten to the point of view as would have gotten particularly as how it basically would have gotten to this particularly, as it seems goes, basically of how he would have basically had the battle, all the fight Hades particularly, of how would have gotten to the point out particularly that we see of how, just to consider the follow of how no matter how much this basically how Devilman was wanted to realize though that Hades said that his wife was revived after Devilman killed Hades' wife particularly, of how so Hades wanted Devilman to have the battle against Great Mazinger, as how it's considered to the fact just because how he wanted to get the chance particularly of how this would have has gone to the thing particularly of when it suddenly it just gets very, very gruesome as well when Devilman is fighting those demons in the hellish carnage battle in order when he wanted Miki back to be revived after her death as accordingly as well, and he realizes this is how he has been becoming more powerful, what Devilman has become, of how especially when he knew that Ammon is there, when he thought because this is how he has the battle between him and Ammon. Yes, this is particularly what you see in that one. Because this is how... And this cat character is basically working under Hades, which is Momo-chan, which is basically a cat girl who has the soul of a cat occupying a human body, who is working under Hades accordingly, of how considers this as well. And then Boss as well has found the body of Kyorafudo, who was washed up on shore after the hellish battle between him and Hades, particularly, as well considered. Yeah, and there is we did see Koji Kabuto also from there as well, just to consider how they were trying to get Kyorafudo back if he was recovered after being washed up from all sorts of how this, just to consider how if he was basically wanted to save the world from humanity, particularly, of how just to consider the point out of how is considered of how what this is how it's basically has been the wonder thing of how Momo-chan has knew about the warrior beast of how there was fighting these demons particularly, including of how especially of how there was the hellish carnage progresses of how it's going on, of how Hades wanted Devilman to kill Great Mazinger and Tetsuya Tsurugi. Well, yeah, even though Tetsuya Tsurugi is the piloted Great Mazinger in the battle, because, Tetsuya Tsurugi with Jun Hano, which are these two from the Great Mazinger series, are in this one as well. Just considered of how Devilman challenged to the battle between him and Great Mazinger, since the battle between Devilman and Hades was put on hold. So instead, Tetsuya Tsurugi has piloted the Great Mazinger, particularly of how he has got the chance for how he could have fought the battle between him and Devilman, of how this has gotten to him, particularly of how this keeps him going, as how he used the battle against the demon. Because, that's how they wanted. So, Great Mazinger has to fight off the demons in hell, particularly, because Tetsuya Tsurugi had a lot to do with, particularly when he piloted the Great Mazinger, fighting off the demons in a hellish carnage, gruesome, combat battle, as how, because those demons wouldn't stand a chance against the Great Mazinger, because the Great Mazinger is more powerful with a breastburn of how it fights off those demons. Yeah, that's the thing, particularly, just to consider the fact for this particularly, as the battle between the battle against the demons, what Great Mazinger had to fight off against it, particularly when he shoots the lasers of the eyes, particularly just to fight off those monsters. Yeah, that's particularly of how what Great Mazinger had the capable thing, as how he wanted to do. But this wasn't long, particularly of how cutting to the points of how this, when Devilman is always there, has the battle between him and Great Mazinger, with Great Mazinger wanted to battle against Devilman first with the ultimate power, what Great Mazinger has, when Devilman has absorbed the powers from Hades and Jinmen, particularly. If Great Mazinger could have overpowered Devilman with Thunderbreak, particularly, as how would have gotten to the point, particularly, as how they would have known, particularly, of how no matter how much this goes of the battle here, as a matter of fact of how what Devilman basically has won against Great Mazinger when he rips the engineer's heart out of Great Mazinger. If you didn't know if Tetsuya Tsurugi is not even dead or if he's alive, of how particularly, just to consider the ways of how when wrecking shit up, particularly, until we see of how who could have basically, where does these go next, and then of how particularly of how Koji Kabuto was talking to the Duke Fleed, of how he could have figured something out, particularly if what Duke Fleed would have piloted Grendizer to fight off Hades or any demons in a hellish nightmare, if he would have gotten the chance, particularly, as well. I mean, where does this go next, particularly, of how it was reviving Great Mazinger as the Black God Great Mazinger, of how it's been piloted, especially for the light quantum tech, how it's been causing this particularly as well. Yeah. And on top of this particularly, and in the final chapter of the manga, however, it's basically of how Devilman has fight off against Hades once again, particularly as well. And you end the story with Miki, which is Akira Fudo's girlfriend, slowly opened her eyes because she was revived after her death. Of how the story climactic ends. So that's the story particularly. Although the characters in the Devilman vs. Hades manga, however, there is basically of how there's other characters. You know, like there's newer characters like the Crow character, which is the Karasu Tengu as well. Because I think it was piloted by Professor Kabuto, who is tracking down Hades in Hell, of how it's located at particularly. And we all know the characters from the Devilman manga material are in this as well from before, and also you have Hades and Jinmin included in this accordingly. And not only you have the Devilman characters, there's also Great Mazinger characters, and we got Duke Fleed, who is from UFO Robot Grendizer, included. Because I think there's some more Mazinger characters, including a character from UFO Robot Grendizer, Duke Fleed, particularly. I mean, that's how you all know the characters, particularly. The artwork is very well done. I mean, it's very well drawn, accordingly, particularly. I mean, I just love the artwork. I mean, it looks very unique, as supposedly for a manga like Devilman vs. Hades, particularly, because especially on every volumes, like where you see Great Mazinger on there accordingly. Although I haven't seen the original Great Mazinger series, but I have seen UFO Robot Grendizer in Great Mazinger Z series. I thought this is basically all new to me. I mean, the manga, however, it looks very more powerful than Mazinger Z versus Devilman movie, because both are crossovers, which I think this all comes in surprises, as how talking about a crossover, which is a mainly strong, solid idea by adding characters from Grendizer and Great Mazinger. Well, however, Duke Fleed is the only character from UFO Robot Grendizer added in the Devilman vs. Hades manga, because I didn't know this had Duke Fleed from UFO Robot Grendizer in Devilman vs. Hades. Because, you know, in French-speaking countries, in Germany, Grendizer goes by Goldorok, as well as in Italy, UFO Robot Grendizer goes by the name UFO Robot Goldrake, or Atlas UFO Robot as well. Which I think, ironically, UFO Robot Grendizer is the more popular one, and also as part of Force 5, which they remember from their childhood. But anyways, Devilman versus Great Mazinger crossover is what your typical manga. I mean, this is like all in one, 3 parts, accordingly, for a 3-volume manga, of how this has come to having a strong, solid idea of how they're putting in characters, like putting Duke Fleed from the UFO Robot Grendizer as the other minor character in the final volume of Devilman vs. Hades. I mean, this manga would have been particularly, though, for overall, in my opinion, of what makes this manga look better is they could have had Grendizer and Great Mazinger team up to fight against Hades or Jinmin or any of those hellish demon monsters in hell. What Grendizer or Great Mazinger could have teamed up and fight against those demons, which Devilman could have defeated earlier. I mean, that would have been to make a better manga, particularly if they could have added UFO robot Grendizer, particularly. Yeah, this manga never makes any mentions of, particularly like, this never makes any mention of Mazinkaiser or any of those reincarnations, or Ryu Asukura, which is from the Devilman manga. Because in this manga, because I thought they were expecting Ryu from the Devilman manga, but instead they put Duke Fleed on there. Especially in the characters, particularly. Because I thought this was pretty interesting to put Duke Fleed from UFO Robot Grendizer in Devilman vs. Hades, which is basically a crossover with Great Mazinger. Because I thought this manga was supposed to be like a Devilman Mazinger Z crossover, but unfortunately, Mazinger Z vs. Devilman is the only anime movie, which is a crossover, Devilman with Mazinger Z crossover. However, in the manga, you just got Great Mazinger. This could have been, because, especially on the back covers of the Devilman vs. Hades manga, where it said, the epic Devilman Mazinger crossover, but apparently it's actually Great Mazinger. We all know, but there are some characters like Koji Kabuto and Sayaka Yumi. Those are the two characters from Great Mazinger Z on there, as well as Duke Fleed from the UFO Robot Grendizer is in this manga, including. Don't believe me? Because I was going to show you. Because this manga made me feel surprised, is that this manga featured Duke Fleed from UFO Robot Grendizer, which it blew my mind. Pretty interesting, though, hasn't it? Because this manga stayed so fresh, particularly, of how they put it in the character from UFO Robot Grendizer. Yeah, because here's Duke Fleed in this one. Yeah, that's him from UFO Robot Grendizer. Pretty interesting, though. That's a nice little trivia for that as well. My score for this manga, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10, particularly. Because, although I haven't read the original Devilman manga, but pretty soon I will be planning on reading the original Devilman manga as soon as I can. As well as these reincarnation of the Devilman manga material, as well as the spin-offs such as Devilman Lady or The Devil Lady, which is another manga spin-off of Devilman from Go Nagai, because Go Nagai is the creator of Cutie Honey, Devilman, Violence Jack, etc. particularly. Yeah, this manga, of Devilman vs. Hades, it never makes any mention of Ryu from the original Devilman manga, or Violence Jack, which I think is more different than the other, particularly, accordingly, as well. And this manga can be perfect for your manga recommendations if you ever read any manga crossovers, or if you ever been a fan of Go Nagai as well. Because this manga makes me introduced that I'm starting to become a fan of Go Nagai as well. Because I have seen the original Mazinger Z series as well as the Devilman OVA. I mean, this manga has a anticlimax in how the story ends, particularly. I mean, Devilman never killed the Mazinger team, but he tells the Mazinger team, next time, prepare for the next battle. Until next time, is what his own words of how he says, prepare for the next battle until next time, as how this, particularly of how what he has as well. And on top of all of this, Devilman vs. Hades, however, is basically your typical crossover manga of how they put in another character that is part of, from, you know, like Great Mazinger, Mazinger Z, like these. Because I know there's some Mazinger characters, and one character from Grandizer, yeah, and that is how what Go Nagai fans should recognize as well. For any source of the Go Nagai material, particularly of how it's gotten to this accordingly. This conclusion for this, if you want to binge read on this, read this. I highly recommend if you read the Devilman vs. Hades manga, if you ever read the original Devilman manga as well. Pretty soon I will be reading the original Devilman manga as soon as I can at one point. So that's going to be it for my manga review on Devilman vs. Hades for today's manga review. You guys, thank you for watching, but before we go, here's what I'm going to say for this video. It's been, I think I've read this manga 3 times, particularly, of how I wanted to go in depth of how I wanted to talk about the series, particularly when it comes to talking about a crossover manga, particularly, accordingly as well. What do I think of this? I really love this. Although, because we all know the story was written by Go Nagai, and the art was done by Team Moon, particularly, of how I wanted to review this manga. Hope subscribe for content, my anime planet link in the description down below. If you want to check out my anime planet, because I have a huge backlog, the link will be in the description down below, because I have a huge backlog of manga and anime on my anime planet account, because that's why, if you want to check it out at your leisure at this point. And also, Patreon link will be in the description down below. And by the way, you have to be a grown-up to follow on Patreon. And also, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. What do you think of Devilman vs. Hades? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because that's something I have right here. And also, be sure to smack the like button if you enjoyed this video. Click on the subscribe button. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, RuRoniK95. Feel free to join my channel, especially if you're new to my channel as a newcomer. Smack the notifications bell button. Be sure to get notified also as well for more latest updates. And keep it otaku for this manga review on Devilman vs. Hades. Wow, I haven't done a manga review like this until now. Because at first I thought I was going to do like review volumes 1 and 2 and 3 as a, but I had to do it like all in one as a one take for this manga review as well. Which is something that I have wanted to do, something that is new, just to change things up. This is, and I know today's Friday, this is RuRoniK95 saying thank you for watching my video. I'm glad you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you soon for the next video. Hope you have a great day. This is RuRoniK95 signing off. Thank you for watching my video, and I will see you soon for more videos. Take care. Bye.